The afternoon Lily asked Ben to help her practice kissing, he realized that some lines between friendship and something more aren't lines at all, just borders you've been too afraid to cross. Ben was 36 years old. He worked as a landscape architect for a small firm that specialized in public parks and residential gardens, the kind of work that kept his hands dirty and his mind clear. He lived in a modest bungalow on the east side of town with a backyard full of native plants and a front porch where he drank his morning coffee and watched the neighborhood wake up. Ben had been single for 5 years, ever since his long-term girlfriend moved to Portland and asked him not to follow. He wasn't heartbroken anymore, just settled into a rhythm of work, weekends at the hardware store and Friday nights at Lily's apartment watching old cooking shows and arguing about whether cilantro belonged in salsa. Lily had been his best friend for 12 years. They met at a mutual friend's housewarming party, bonded over a shared hatred of small talk, and fell into the kind of friendship that felt effortless. Lily was 34, worked as a freelance graphic designer, and lived in a converted loft downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a ridiculous collection of houseplants that Ben had to water whenever she traveled. She was funny, sharp, fiercely independent, and had been single for as long as Ben could remember. She went on dates occasionally, but they never seemed to go anywhere. She'd come back to Ben's place afterwards, kick off her shoes and say something like, "Well, that was 2 hours I'll never get back." It was a Saturday afternoon in late April when everything changed. Ben had come over to help Lily repot some of her larger plants, and they were sitting on her living room floor surrounded by bags of soil and ceramic pots when Lily set down her trowel and looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Can I ask you something weird?" she said. Ben glanced up from the fern he was transplanting. "You always ask me weird things." "This is weirder than usual," Lily said. She was sitting cross-legged, her hair tied up in a messy bun, dirt smudged on her cheek. She looked nervous, which was unusual for Lily. "Okay," Ben said slowly. "What is it?" Lily hesitated, then took a breath. "I have a date next week, with a guy I actually like, and I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up." Ben frowned. "Why would you mess it up?" "Because I'm bad at this," Lily said, gesturing vaguely at herself. "The whole dating thing. The physical stuff. I haven't kissed anyone in over a year, and the last time I did, the guy told me I was too aggressive." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "So I need practice, and I was wondering if you'd help me." Ben stared at her. "Help you?" "Practice kissing," Lily said quickly, "just so I don't completely embarrass myself. You're my best friend. You're safe, and I trust you." Ben felt something twist in his chest. "Lily, I know it's weird," Lily said, "but I don't have anyone else I can ask. And it's just practice. It doesn't have to mean anything." Ben looked at her. At the way she was holding herself, like she was bracing for him to say no. At the way her hands were fidgeting with the edge of her shirt. And he realized that saying no would hurt her more than saying yes ever could. "Okay," he said quietly. Lily blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah," Ben said. "If it'll help." Lily's face broke into a relieved smile. "Thank you. You're the best." Ben wasn't sure about that, but he nodded anyway. They finished repotting the plants in silence, the air between them feeling heavier than it had before. When they were done, Lily washed her hands in the kitchen sink and came back into the living room, wiping them on a dish towel. She sat down on the couch and patted the cushion next to her. "Okay," she said. "Let's do this." Ben sat down, suddenly very aware of how close they were. Lily turned to face him, her knee brushing against his. "So how do we start?" she asked. "I don't know," Ben said. "You're the one who asked." Lily laughed nervously. "Right. Okay. So I just lean in?" "I think that's how it works," Ben said. Lily nodded. She took a breath, then leaned toward him. Ben stayed still, letting her set the pace. Her hand came up to rest on his shoulder, and then her lips were on his, soft and tentative. Ben closed his eyes and kissed her back, trying to keep it light, trying to make it feel like practice. But it didn't feel like practice. It felt like something breaking open, like a door he hadn't known was locked suddenly swinging wide. Lily's hand slid to the back of his neck, her fingers threading into his hair, and Ben felt himself leaning into her, his hand finding her waist. The kiss deepened, no longer tentative, no longer careful. It was real and warm and entirely too much. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Lily's eyes were wide, her hand still resting on the back of his neck. "That felt too real," she whispered. Ben didn't say anything. He couldn't. Lily pulled her hand back and stood up quickly, wrapping her arms around herself. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have asked. That was stupid." "It wasn't stupid," Ben said. "Yes, it was," Lily said. She turned away from him, running her hands through her hair. "We're friends, Ben. That's all we've ever been. And She stopped, shaking her head. "I need to go clear my head. Can you lock up when you leave?" "Lily!" but she was already walking toward her bedroom, the door closing softly behind her. Ben sat on the couch for a long time, staring at the spot where she had been sitting. Then he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and left. The next few days were strange. Lily didn't text him. Ben didn't text her either. He told himself it was fine, that she just needed space, that they'd laugh about it in a week and everything would go back to normal. But he didn't believe that. On Wednesday, Ben was at the office sketching out a design for a community garden when his phone buzzed. It was a text from Lily. "Can we talk?" Ben stared at the screen. Then he typed back, "Yeah, when? Tonight? My place?" Ben hesitated, then replied, "I'll be there at 7. When Ben arrived at Lily's apartment that evening, she was waiting by the window, her arms crossed. She opened the door before he could knock. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi," Ben said. Lily stepped aside and let him in. The apartment was neat, the plants all watered, the couch cleared of the usual pile of throw pillows. She had cleaned, which meant she was nervous. They sat down on opposite ends of the couch. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Finally, Lily broke the silence. "I canceled the date," she said. Ben looked at her. "Why?" "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you," Lily said. She wasn't looking at him. She was staring at her hands, her fingers knotted together in her lap. "I kept telling myself it was just because of the kiss, that I was overthinking it. But it wasn't just the kiss, Ben. It was everything. The way you showed up to help me with the plants even though you were tired. The way you didn't make me feel stupid for asking. The way you've always been there, for 12 years, without asking for anything in return." Ben felt his chest tighten. "Lily, I think I've been in love with you for a long time," Lily said, her voice shaking slightly. "And I didn't realize it until I kissed you, until I felt what it was like to be that close to you and realized I didn't want to pull away." Ben didn't move. He didn't trust himself to. "But I don't want to lose you," Lily continued. "If you don't feel the same way, we can pretend this never happened. We can go back to being friends. I just needed to say it. I needed you to know." Ben stood up. Lily looked up at him, fear flickering across her face. But Ben didn't leave. He crossed the space between them and sat down next to her, close enough that their knees touched. "I've been in love with you since the first year I knew you," Ben said quietly. "But I didn't think you'd ever see me that way. So I convinced myself that being your friend was enough. That it had to be enough." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Ben, but it's not," Ben said. "It hasn't been for a long time. I just didn't know how to tell you." Lily let out a shaky laugh and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "That we're idiots." "Yeah," Ben said. "We are." Lily leaned forward and kissed him again, and this time it wasn't practice. It was real and deliberate and full of all the things they had been too afraid to say for 12 years. When they pulled apart, Lily rested her forehead against his. "So what do we do now?" she asked. "I don't know," Ben said. "But I think we figure it out together." Lily smiled. "I like that." Over the next few months, Ben and Lily navigated the shift from best friends to something more with a mixture of awkwardness and ease. They still watched cooking shows on Friday nights, still argued about cilantro, still texted each other terrible puns at inappropriate times. But now there were other things too. Ben stayed over on weekends, waking up to Lily making terrible coffee and burning toast. Lily started showing up at Ben's place unannounced with takeout and a bottle of wine. They took walks through the parks Ben had designed and talked about everything and nothing. It wasn't perfect. They had their first fight 3 weeks in, a stupid argument about whether they should tell their friends right away or wait. Lily wanted to shout it from the rooftops. Ben wanted to keep it quiet until they were sure. They didn't speak for 2 days. Then Ben showed up at her apartment with flowers and an apology, and Lily let him in and kissed him before he could finish the sentence. "We're still figuring this out," she said. "And that's okay." "Yeah," Ben said. "It is." But not everyone was happy about the change. One evening, Ben and Lily were having dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown when they ran into someone from Lily's past. His name was Eric, an ex-boyfriend from a few years back who had never quite accepted that things were over. He was tall, well-dressed, and had the kind of confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Lily," Eric said, stopping at their table. He glanced at Ben, then back at Lily. "I didn't know you were seeing anyone." "Hi, Eric," Lily said evenly. "This is Ben, my boyfriend." Eric's smile tightened. "Boyfriend? That's new." "Not really," Lily said. "We've known each other for 12 years. Eric laughed. "Oh, so you finally settled. That's sweet." Ben felt his jaw tighten. Lily's hand found his under the table, squeezing gently. "We didn't settle," Lily said, her voice calm but firm. "We just finally stopped pretending." Eric looked at Ben, his expression dismissive. "Well, good luck with that. Lily's a lot to handle." "She's not something to be handled," Ben said quietly. "And I'm not interested in your opinion." Eric's smile vanished. He opened his mouth to respond, but Lily cut him off. "We're done here, Eric," she said. "Enjoy your dinner." Eric stared at her for a moment, then turned and walked away. Ben watched him go, his hand still holding Lily's under the table. "You okay?" Lily asked. "Yeah," Ben said. "Are you?" Lily smiled. "I'm great. That was kinda hot, actually." Ben laughed, the tension in his shoulders easing. "Glad I could help." They finished their dinner and walked home through the quiet streets, their hands linked, the evening air cool against their skin. When they reached Lily's building, she stopped and turned to face him. "Thank you," she said, "for standing up for me. For not making me feel like I need to be less than I am." "You don't," Ben said. "You never have." Lily kissed him, slow and sweet, and when she pulled back, she was smiling. "Stay tonight?" she asked. "Always," Ben said. A year later, Ben and Lily moved in together. They found a small house on the edge of town with a big backyard that Ben immediately started planning. Lily filled the rooms with her plants and her sketches and a ridiculous number of throw pillows that Ben pretended to hate but secretly loved. They adopted a cat, a gray tabby they named Basil, and spent their evenings cooking dinner together and arguing about whether Basil belonged in pasta. One night they were sitting on the back porch watching the sun set over the garden Ben had planted. Lily was leaning against him, her head on his shoulder, Basil curled up in her lap. "Can I tell you something?" Lily asked quietly. "Always," Ben said. "I'm glad I asked you to practice kissing," she said. "Even though it was terrifying. Even though it could have ruined everything." Ben smiled. "Me too." Lily tilted her head to look up at him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't? If I'd gone on that date instead?" Ben thought about it. About all the years they had spent as friends, standing on the edge of something they were too afraid to name. About how close they had come to missing this entirely. "Yeah," he said, "but I try not to." Lily nodded. "Me neither." She reached up and kissed him, and Ben wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. Basil meowed in protest and jumped down, stalking off into the garden. Lily laughed and settled back against Ben's chest, her hand finding his. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," Ben said. And they stayed like that as the sky turned dark and the stars came out, the world quiet and still around them. 6 months later, Ben proposed. He did it in the backyard, on a Saturday morning, while they were planting tomatoes. It wasn't fancy. There were no candles or rose petals or speeches. He just pulled the ring out of his pocket, held it up and said, "I want to spend the rest of my life planting things with you." Lily stared at him, her hands covered in dirt, tears streaming down her face. "Are you serious?" "Yeah," Ben said. "I'm serious." Lily tackled him, knocking them both into the dirt, kissing him over and over while Basil watched from the porch with what could only be described as judgment. "Yes," Lily said. "Yes, yes, yes." They got married in the backyard that fall, surrounded by friends and family and all the plants they had grown together. Lily wore a simple white dress. Ben wore a suit that still had a smudge of dirt on the sleeve from the proposal. And when they kissed, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Afterwards, Lily pulled him aside, away from the crowd, and handed him a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" Ben asked. "Open it," Lily said. Ben unfolded the paper. It was a sketch Lily had drawn, a simple line drawing of two people sitting on a couch, leaning toward each other, about to kiss. At the bottom in Lily's handwriting it said, "The day everything changed." Ben looked up at her, his throat tight. "You drew this?" "The day after," Lily said. "I couldn't stop thinking about it. About you. So I drew it. And I've kept it ever since." Ben pulled her close, the drawing still in his hand. "I love you," he said. "I know," Lily whispered. "That's why we're here." And she was right. That was why they were there. That was why they both were. What would you have done if your best friend asked you to practice kissing, knowing it could change everything between you? And have you ever realized that the person you were looking for was standing right next to you all along, hiding in plain sight as your closest friend? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.